Pastor Mark Biltz here from Shaddai Ministries. Thank you again so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe and share. Also, please like this video, and we would love to hear your comments. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye. Deuteronomy 18, 20-22. The prophet who takes it on himself to say words in my name. Wow, that's like in church, people come up and says, "Thus saith the Lord," and then they go off. They better make sure it is them, that is God and not them. Look what it says. The prophet who takes it on himself to say words in my name, which I've not given him orders to say, or who says anything in my name, in the name of other gods, will come to his death. If you say in your hearts, how are we to be certain that the word does not come from the Lord? When a prophet makes a statement in the name of the Lord, if what he says does not take place and his words do not come true, then his word is not the word of the Lord. The words of the prophet were said in the pride of his own heart, and you should have no fear of him. Okay? But that is only half the answer. That's not the whole answer. But one main thing, what he says, has to come to pass. Okay, here is why this is important. I want you to take a look here at, you can see Lebanon at the bottom, Cyprus. You see that big area of Turkey going up to the top, and then looking down, do you see Athens over there? Right there, and do you see that little lake area, pond area by Athens? Okay, here it is. See Athens on the right? I've blown it up. Do you see that big water area to the left, this one right here? That says the Gulf of Corinth. Why is it called the Gulf of Corinth? Because Corinth is right there. This is where we're going, guys, this fall. Now, do you see the Gulf of Corinth there? I want you to look right above it. Right above it there is a little town called Delphi. How many of you have never heard of Delphi? It's okay, most of you haven't, I'm sure. I want to tell you, Delphi and Corinth are like brothers and sisters. Very closely connected. This isn't very far. I've blown it up. I want to tell you about the Gentiles have had prophets for 700 years that they followed. Did you know that? This is why the Corinthians were so messed up when it comes to prophecy. Listen to this. There's this lady named Pythia, and you'll see like an earthquake, and you see the steam coming up. She was the prophetess of the day. That is the temple of Apollo, and people are all lined up coming to get a personal prophecy from Pythia. Everybody wants a personal prophecy. Let's go to Pythia and get our personal prophecy. Now listen to this. She was the high priestess of the temple of Apollo at Delphi. She specifically served as its oracle and was known as the Oracle of Delphi. Her title was also historically glossed in English as the Pythoness, like a python. The Pythia was established in the late 8th century BC. We're talking 800 years before Messiah was born. They were having this prophetess who was widely credited for her prophecies that were uttered under the divine possession of Apollo. The Pythian priestess emerged preeminently by the end of the 7th century BC and continued to be consulted until the late 4th century AD, around the time of Constantine. All of the nations would go hear prophecy from her. During this period, the Delphic oracle was considered the most prestigious and authoritative oracle among all the Greeks. She was among the most powerful women of the classical world, and the oracle is one of the best documented religious institutions of the classical Greeks. So the Corinthians were very religious. They weren't believers, but they were religious, and they followed prophecy. One of the main stories claimed that the Pythia delivered oracles in a frenzied state while speaking in gibberish. Okay. which was induced by the vapors rising from the chasm in the rock. And when she spoke the gibberish, the priests interpreted it as the difficult to interpret prophecies, and they turned them into poems preserved in Greek literature to this day. Now, in Judaism, when they say if you want to know a false prophet, is if they want money. That tells you right there they're not a true prophet. Matter of fact, they also say if they stayed more than 3 days in the town, they were a false prophet. But listen to this. Petitioners would draw lots to determine the order of who got to go first to hear the prophetess. But representatives of a city-state or those who would bring larger donations to Apollo could get a closer place in line. Each person approaching the oracle was accompanied with someone who was appointed specifically to the country of the petitioner, whose job was to identify the citizen of their city, and this service too was paid for. At times when the Pythia was not available, consultants could obtain guidance by asking simple yes or no questions to the priests, and the responses returned to the tossing of colored beans. One would designate yes and one would designate no. Now, y'all know Constantine was around 306 to 337. Well, a Roman emperor a few years later, Theodosius I, who was from 379 to 395, he's the one who destroyed this. The temple of Apollo survived until about AD 390, when the Roman emperor silenced the oracle by destroying the temple and most of the statues and works of art to remove all the traces of paganism. Okay, now let me say this. I believe all the gifts are for today, and I believe they're still operational. But you got to know the counterfeit. Does that make sense? You want what's true, but you don't want the counterfeit.